Robertson. I'm married. I've got 3 children. I work part-time as the cathedral choir conductor, and I'm involved with a voluntary organisation called Orkney Minds. Orkney Minds is a locally based group, and what we're out to do is to change attitudes locally. Mental health is something that people don't talk about, and the more people don't talk about it, the more of a taboo subject it becomes, and the more stigmatised people become. What does it feel like to be apart from society? What does it feel like to be avoided on the street, you know? I suffer from a schizophrenic illness, and it means that I take medication to control it. It does allow me to cope and lead a relatively normal life, and it enables me to be normal for my family as well. 1 in 4 people in Scotland will have suffered at some time from mental illness.
My name is Pamela Robertson, and I'm a pharmacist working in Kirkwall. And in 2007 I suffered from postnatal depression after my first son was born. Within the first week I knew something wasn't right. My feelings towards my son weren't what they should have been. I didn't feel like I was bonding with him. The longer time went on, the more distant I felt I was becoming from him. I didn't really want to spend any time with him. Certainly in my case, I just didn't want to do anything. I wanted to shut off. All I wanted to do was sleep. I just wanted to sleep all the time. If I didn't, I would panic with my... It sounds absurd, but from the moment my son got up, I would panic that he's not going to sleep at night again the next, that following evening when you go to bed. And if he didn't sleep, I wasn't going to sleep. And it was just a vicious cycle. I would just be in a complete state of panic the whole time about sleep. My husband was with me initially to begin with, but I don't know, the breakaway, like yourself, I wanted to be taken away because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to carry on the way I was, and something had to change. But and making that change initially was heart-wrenching and difficult, but certainly was the right thing to do.
Yeah, well, I was the same. I mean, I'd got sent up to the hospital to see them in the outpatients, and they basically said to me that they could send a CPN the next day, and I told them that if they didn't take me in, that I wouldn't be there next day. My name's Noreen Wright, and I had postnatal depression after my son was born 14 years ago. Right from the very start, almost day 3 after my son was born, I felt very strange. Laughing one minute, crying the next, panicking about silly things, not being able to focus on what to do, how to bath him, and just not being able to cope with household things. And I remember being fixated on the fact that I couldn't get a shower, and anybody that came in, I would be saying to them, I can't get a shower. So just completely irrational thinking. I know I didn't have any understanding really of what was going on.
You feel guilty for feeling that way, think I shouldn't feel like this and don't be so silly, but it's just your emotions, you can't do anything about it.
That's right, yeah. But I think all the time too, I was just petrified that somebody would come and take my son off me because I wasn't a good mum. I felt suicidal a couple of times. I remember once going out with a friend of mine. We went down to Cramond and there was a beautiful waterfall there, and I stood at the side of the waterfall and my son was in the pram, and I was going to go over the edge. Now, what stopped me was I couldn't decide whether I wanted to take my son with me in the pram or whether I was going to go myself. And all I could think about was how bad my husband would feel if I took my son. So I had almost decided I was just going to go myself when my friend spoke to me, and it broke it for me. And I'd met her through the classes, so she had a baby at the same time. And I knew that my experience was very different from hers. So we were able to talk about that. And I told her then that I felt suicidal and that she had. So we talked about, for that. But I never ever told my husband when I got home that that's how I had felt.
There had been maybe 3 or 4 times where I thought about when I was driving the car, just put my foot on the accelerator and just keeping going, not turning the corner. I don't know whether I would actually have ever gone through with it, but it certainly was thoughts that went through my head. And when I'd said that to the doctor, that one time I said it, that was pretty much the time I was hospitalised and put to Aberdeen. So yeah, it was pretty bad.
I think it's really important that people understand what it's like, but that it can happen to anybody. One minute you can be fine and the next minute you can be suffering from a serious mental illness, and it completely changes your life, and it changes the life of people that are around you as well, your friends, relatives, all. It's a massive impact on them.
Just so I had contact with him, I'd try and go home. I think it was on Saturday mornings and come back on Monday mornings just
right.
so. Mm-hmm. My husband was definitely my main support throughout the whole thing. He was the one that did most things and certainly provided me with the backup I needed, but family were there to support me, but I don't fully think they understood how I felt and what I was going through, although they did try. I don't blame them for that. I don't think you do know what it's like unless you go through it yourself or you speak to somebody who has gone through it as well.
My name is Celia Clark. I'm a digital artist in my spare time, and I'm married to Ian, who is a farmer. I was affected by bulimia nervosa for just over 12 years. It began around the age of 12. I'd finished my tea and I was sick after it, and it was quite a strange experience, but it made me feel better. As time went by, it just became quite a regular thing. I also went through a period of anorexia where I started restricting my food. But the damage emotionally was massive because it's just a cycle that feeds itself, and it becomes more and more intense as time goes on. There were many periods where you just feel so alone. You're so fragile and you're so alone, and there was nobody to talk to. I didn't tell a soul. Not my family, not my friends. It wasn't until I was 24 that I actually told anybody.
I think it's very important. I mean, I feel lucky that I'm willing to speak about it, because there's so many people that are scared to speak about it or don't want people to know, but I don't really care what anybody else thinks now. And I think for what I went through, if nobody else benefits from understanding what I went through, if I was to keep quiet and to say nothing, and what would be the benefit of actually going through what I went through? It would have been kind of a waste of time if it wasn't going to help somebody else or to make them understand that there is a positive. You do start to feel better. There are people there that can help you, and life does go on, I suppose.
I just got really tired of it, and I then started the kind of road to recovery, but again that in itself was a very long process too. And the first person I told was a GP. However, that first visit was not successful. And it took me another 6 months to pluck up the courage to go and see somebody else. The second doctor I saw was fantastic. She was brilliant. She could not have been more sympathetic, more understanding. She put me in touch with a local support group, which was invaluable to my recovery, and she also put me on the waiting list at the Royal Edinburgh Hospital. It was almost like I'd been drowning for a long time, and I was suddenly kind of coming out of the water, and it was an incredible journey, and I'm so grateful that I was able to make it through, because an awful lot of people don't.
Once I came out of hospital, I joined a postnatal depression support group and got some amazing help through that. It gave me an interest in mental health, and I started to go on different committees and groups to think about specifically postnatal depression. I also started to do a course to be an advocate. So I actually changed my career. And I feel I've really got a passion for that now, passion for all sorts of things. And I've just got a completely different understanding of people now that I never used to have.
I would say it's taken me about 1.5 years, 2 years after the birth of my son to actually come through the other side and feel like I could live my life again. And now having a second son who doesn't sleep, I just realised how absurd it was. And I don't know, but when you're not feeling well, you just focus on the stupidest of things. There's just something you just grasp onto, and that becomes your focus in life.
One of the things I decided to start up in Orkney was a support group, helping them find techniques to manage what they're going through. But I think what's crucial is just that sense that somebody understands, and the fact that I've recovered, the fact that I'm better, that I'm well, and that you can learn to love life again and be happy. I don't take any day for granted. You know, I wake up each day and I'm so grateful that I'm well and happy and settled, and life has so much value to me.
At first I used to worry about whether I should share with people that I had had similar problems, but quite early on I found that that's what people wanted to know, that I understood on a certain level, and people just seemed to really open up to that, the fact that I had been there and that I've come through it.
See Me has funded this project. They've been very supportive to Orkney Minds ever since we got set up, and their publicity work on TV is excellent about raising awareness, and I think that people that watch this will change their attitudes, including members of the public, but also businesses and employers. There's a lot of talent out there that's untapped. A lot of people suffering from illness, but it doesn't mean to say they don't have anything to offer society.